Hello. We have two, three quick announcements. There will be a evening talk from 4:30 today. Also, we would request everybody to please keep your phones on airplane or switch off mode only. I repeat once again, I would request everyone to keep their phones on airplane mode or switch off. Not on silent, vibrate, nothing. Just airplane and switch off mode. Also, um, we would also would request everybody to kindly adhere to the timings of the kitchen and take your breakfast, lunch, and dinner on time. Thank you. Also, these cordless mics, we would request everyone that after you say something, kindly switch them off and then again restart them when you want to speak of something. But just don't keep them on for the whole session. Okay? Thank you.
Yeah, I can't. I'm શરદી બહુ થઈ ગઈ છે. હા હા થોડુંક આને પાસે આ બાજુ લઈ આવો નોટ ઓન માય ફેસ.
O Sanjay, O
Now,
Sanjay, I had no hope of victory when I heard that when the great spirited Arjuna lived in the kingdom of Virat, my best had been destroyed by Arjun on a single chariot.
so the Pandavas, after 12 years of living in the forest, they went for 1 year in Agnat, and the kingdom where they chose was Virat. And another name for Virat was Matsya. We'll come into that in the next one. Matsya means fish. Matsya also means jealousy. And Virat, that which is huge, right? Our unconscious mind, our dark side. And everyone has a dark side. And the whole effort to rise in consciousness is to be able to bring light into the dark side. And this is very difficult because we cannot observe the dark side within ourselves. How do we observe the dark side? How do we begin the observation of the dark side? Who can say? Who has practiced and can tell me that this is how we begin the observation of the dark side? How do we begin the observation of the dark side? Huh? Give her the mic, no? You know?
Yeah, first start with the body
I
observation.
can't hear.
Start with the body observation. The body moves without our consciousness and it moves whichever direction. And then you can do either others' observation or you can sit and see your own observation, whichever way.
No, what was the other word you used?
Others
Observation of
others.
others. Right? Now this is a very, very subtle point. Very, very subtle point. The dark side is observed by observing others. Why observing others? Why observing of others? And this is a very important part of self-observation. And what would it mean in observing others? That what do we have to first observe within ourselves which makes us capable of observing others? What do we have to first observe within ourselves that makes us capable of observing others? Come on, come on. Mike.
Other person's behavior, reaction actually lies within myself.
Yeah,
So
but
I'm actually observing if the other person is
that
angry.
you're right, absolutely.
Hmm.
But which part of it? Which part of it? First of all, let's go back to the question which was now, that I cannot observe others unless I'm free of something within myself. What is that? What is that?
free of reaction.
Which eyes?
Or all the others.
Which eyes? Which group of eyes?
Judgment.
Huh? Don't throw what you call balls in the dark. If you practiced, you know what you're saying, then answer the question. Don't, by I throw something in the dark and don't this thing. I want somebody who has practiced this. Somebody who has practiced this. It's very, very difficult. Very difficult. Right? See, as long as we have judgmental eyes, we cannot observe somebody else because immediately those judgmental eyes will come in. Right? So there is a long process of being free from judgmental eyes. And this takes many years. Many years. Now when you have loosened the judgmental eyes within you, within ourselves, what do we observe in others? What do we observe in others? And this is going to be very difficult for everyone to accept. It's very, very difficult for everyone to accept. No one here is going to accept this. Huh?
We observe a reflection of ourselves, our own qualities.
No, which part of ourself? What do we observe?
The negative part, no.
Right? But this is a general term. What I want the particular thing.
That
I can't hear.
What is lying within me, I can observe in others.
Exactly. But what part I'm asking?
which is unconscious, which is dark within me, it comes out.
No. We want to open up the unconscious mind. We cannot rise in consciousness unless we open up the unconscious mind. The unconscious mind the unconscious mind is our dark side. Everybody has a dark side. And we want to bring that dark side into light, right? So, because it is dark, we cannot observe it within ourselves. We don't know how to bring light over there. Unless we could go into dreams and bring light, that is a different matter. But in normal self-observation, we cannot bring light over there. Now, this dark side of ourselves right? We observe it in others. But which facet do we observe? Only one I'm asking about. What do we observe in others? Come on, somebody must have practiced, no? What do we object to in others? What do we object to in others? Now, this is going to be very, very difficult to object to, and we have a deep reaction for it. Right? Pardon? Please speak in the mic.
Somebody blames us.
I object to in others. And this has a deep connection with our attitudes. Deep connection with our attitudes. Right? I'll give one example. Nobody will be able to digest it. Amen. Please sit down. Please sit down. Please sit down. Please sit down. What do I object to? મને બીજાની અંદર કઈ વસ્તુનો વાંધો છે? બીજાની અંદર what do I object to? મને કઈ વસ્તુનો વાંધો છે? Now, Supposing the other person is eating a certain kind of food, and I get a deep inner reaction, chi, 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 chi. This is so dirty. What does it mean?
I am good.
No, no, no. I am getting a reaction, chi. This is very dirty, chi, chi, chi. The reaction is coming from the deep unconscious. I'm giving one example.
I'm better than others.
Nay, 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 nay. Again, let's start from the beginning again. This is very, very important. Very, very important. We all have an unconscious mind. The unconscious is so much. Our conscious mind is so much. Right? We are able to observe our conscious mind, our thoughts, our emotions, our feelings, our sensitivities, sensations, our movements, etc. The conscious part of the mind. We cannot observe the unconscious because it is dark and we don't know the technique to throw light over there. Right? There is a technique where you can directly throw light, but that is in dreams. Now, we want to bring this into our self-observation. So the only way is to observe what I object to in somebody else. So I gave an example of food. What do I object to in somebody else? Now, I see somebody eating a certain kind of food, right? But there is no reaction, right? There is no reaction. There is no like or dislike, right? So then it is not in my spectrum, as he says. But here there is beginning of dislike, and from dislike there is extreme condemnation. From dislike I move to extreme condemnation. What does that mean? What does that mean?
It is my deepest desire, probably. It is my deepest desire, probably.
Yes. That in my unconscious mind, I have a deep desire to eat that food, because everything in life is supported by the opposite. Nothing can exist without its opposite. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So I see a person eating a certain kind of food and suddenly I get irritated, right? I object to, how can you eat this kind of a food? If there's no reaction, then like he says, it is not a part, there is no this thing in the, but that means I have a deep desire to eat that food, if there's condemnation. So this is how we observe the unconscious mind. What is the next one? Come on, give me now you all give me one example. Very easy, very, very easy. We've taken food, we can take something else. Huh? Okay, clothing also. You're right, but something deeper than clothing. Come on. An attitude. What is an attitude? Something which comes up immediately. Something which comes up immediately. There is no gap in the impression and there's for thought to come in. There's an attitude. It has to be related to something. It has to be related to something. Okay, you said success. Now give an example where it is related to something.
I see somebody.
You see,
Success.
I'll give you a little this thing. What comes from the unconscious mind is a deep reaction. Can you understand that much? So, difficult to say in English, so I'll say it in Gujarati a little. A vastu tuch છે. What do you say in English? Can you? It is lower.
Deplorable, disgusting, disgusting.
Tuch, what do we call? It should not be touched also. Now this can go for people whom we know, and then success. No? Supposing somebody 10 years ago was working as an ordinary servant for you, and suddenly you see that he has advanced, what do you call, it won't come in the fan. He has advanced so far in life, he has made so much money. Can you see the reaction in from the is the same as the food? Okay, he is not worth talking to. See, that is the unconscious reaction. Can you get what I'm trying to say? So again, we said food. What is the next one? Easiest. Come on. Easiest. 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 Huh? Religion. 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 Right? And how do we, what do you call, how do we discriminate in this? How we do? See, I have a exterior cover where I say all religions are equal, right? And nobody should, what do you call, denounce any religion. And then my daughter comes and says, I am getting married to this person of this religion. What will happen? What will happen to all my reasoning, and even for a single moment? Then it may come back, my understanding comes back, but even for a single moment. Can you see what I'm trying to say? There'll be that immediate, what do you call, deep reaction from within.
Revulsion.
Revulsion. That comes from the unconscious mind. It comes. So it is something which is lying very deep within us, and we can initially only observe it in others, only observe it in others.
So in that example that you gave of religion, right? So what part is lying in the unconscious mind? Because, obviously what we think about, let's say we talked about the example of a daughter getting married into a different religion. The thoughts that come to your mind is, how will we adjust? It's not what we have, but also.
No. Now okay. You forgotten the unconscious. You come back to the conscious mind.
Okay.
It is that immediate revulsion which comes in.
For that split second.
Yes.
That says I'm better than others, or because we said that it's something that I don't have, right? The stuff that's lying in the unconscious mind.
How to explain this to you?
No, I get it. That immediate second is so much negative force comes out.
Can we no, we can't stop the recording. We
can stop the recording.
No, we can't. It interrupts everything from YouTube to everything.
Okay.
Supposing
We can take another example.
Yeah, I'm trying to give you an example. You will have to fill in the blanks in the example,
Okay.
right? Supposing I'm walking the streets of London. I'm walking the streets of London. And I say, this religion has a, what do you call, place of worship every gully, what do you call, every street. And there's this inner revulsion on me, coming from me. That has come from the unconscious mind. It comes, and it comes, like a tidal wave, and then your understanding comes in and calms everything. You got
No,
it.
I get it. I get it. So obviously, let's take the religion topic completely off.
Okay.
Let's go to something else. Business, right? So
In
I see.
business, it's very difficult. It's very difficult to see it in business, where it is those sanskars which have come to me before birth. My caste was decided at birth. I could not decide my
Caste,
caste. My religion was decided at birth. I could not decide my religion. Can you understand? The profession of my mother and father was decided at birth. I could not decide it. Can you understand? My place of birth was decided at birth. I could not. I will say the religion, the, what do you call, the caste, everything was crystallized on the 7th month. I was born with that crystallization.
Yeah.
Can you?
Yeah, I get it.
You're understanding?
Yeah.
Now that is lying in the deep unconscious.
Follow.
You understand?
Yeah, I follow.
Acha, let's forget it. Let's put it in a different way. Supposing somebody comes to you and he says, I've just, how to say all this? It's difficult when you're getting recorded. He says that I have got admission in medical college.
Yeah.
Right? Now, you ask a question and you say, did you get admission through competition or did you get admission through quota?
Yeah.
You understand?
Yes.
And he says, I got admission through quota. And suddenly is there this thing, these people are.
Yeah.
You understand
I understand.
And then your what do you call, reasoning and all comes in automatically.
Yeah, to rebalance it out.
Right.
But what I was trying to say, let's move to a neutral topic. I'll go back to the business topic, for example.
Yeah.
Somebody who we saw as unsuccessful, maybe a servant to somebody, and right away we get to the news that he made so much money. So that very sporadic of moment comes back saying a lot of negative will flow because we don't have it.
Okay, I'll give you another example, which many people use. It is a one-liner. Supposing somebody has made a lot of money. Of course, I have not made a lot of money. So there's that deep grievance inside that he has made a lot of money. And of course, poor old me has not. The self-pity is there. Right? And I don't see it. Now, this line is coming from the unconscious. Right? And I see that person now, he has made so much money and he has bought cars and etc. And and he's spending so much money on a wedding or whatever and this and that. And suddenly from me it comes, okay, money and culture don't go together.
Correct. Yes,
right?
Yes.
Now that has come from the deep unconscious. And that is the moment where I have to pause over there. Where has this, what do you call this force of movement, this movement of force come from?
So I followed exactly what you're saying, right? So same thing happens, right? When somebody makes the money, we say, what's the worth of making this money, leaving family behind? What's the worth of money making? So all this reasoning.
No, that is not from this thing.
Okay.
It has to
Yeah,
come like a,
okay.
like a spurt of energy.
Got it.
Got
it.
Got it.
But what came out also is not positive in its nature, right?
That is different. That is, we are looking at jealousy in our conscious mind.
Okay.
We are not looking at jealousy which is deep down hidden.
So by observing that moment, if we can,
right.
Are we saying we're opening up the potential or the possibility of converting our negative or dark side into
Right. We have made an entry into our dark side. We've thrown a little light on
okay, so we've seen that there is a dark side that exists inside of us.
Okay, now one more example. Let's go to one more example, and which everybody has this example. Right? And when we cut jokes.
Yes.
Go ahead. Now tell me.
It's at the cost of somebody else.
No. See, I don't know whether they go, but in the old days there used to be a lot of jokes. Like there's an Indian and there's a Russian and there's an American and
yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And so then there's the joke, and in the end the Indian comes out, and there's suddenly that inner feeling of goodness, self-love, that has come from the unconscious mind.
So are you saying basically it's not about correcting or just observing?
Observing
that there is a dark side existing inside of us.
And this is the way the dark side comes out. I always observe it outside, not within myself.
So we're not here to change the dark side. We're just here to observe the dark side, so it starts opening its way through.
Light is change.
Light is change.
Darkness going away is change.
Got it. The fact that we recognized it is
right. Light has gone in, darkness has gone away is the biggest change possible, transformation possible.
Got it. Thank you.
So Virat is the unconscious mind, and the unconscious mind requires a lot of hard work. So when he heard that Arjun, the disciple, Arjun is the disciple, had entered into the dark side of himself, right? He knew that now the ego cannot win the war, the self-love cannot win the war, right? He knew, right? Yeah, please, Mike.
The most important point after the kingdom of Virat was single chariot.
On a single chariot.
That was missed.
Right. So, what does he mean by single chariot? Right. It was not Arjun's chariot. It was the chariot of the, the son of the king of Virat, Matsya Naresh's son. Right. And on that chariot, he defeated all the warriors of the, Kaurav army. Right. He put them into a kind of hypnotic sleep. He put them into a yoga nidra, a kind of hypnotic sleep. And he says that he alone on this single chariot. Now, you see, there are different levels in the Mahabharat. There is Ardharathi, there is Rathi, there is Athirathi, and there is Maharathi. So these are the 4 levels of warriors, right? And the Maharathi has a very opulent chariot, like Arjun's was taken by 4 white horses, right? And the chariot was given to him by Indra. So sorry, it was given to him by Agni. So but here the Maharathi was on a Rathi, on a single chariot, which belonged to a very lower level of warrior, And with that single chariot, he was able to destroy the whole, defeat the whole Kaurav army, right? And this tells us something that uh, if we can move into the unconscious mind, and if we can bring light into the unconscious mind, then how much of power we gain from that. This thing. And he put them all in yoga nidra. So another way of moving into the unconscious mind is through yoga nidra. Through yoga nidra. Another way is, of course, a very deeper way in Tantra is through the sex act. Through the sex act. That is the deepest. Because there Mr. Tauria calls that the energy of essence of consciousness. So there are different ways to work with Virat, the unconscious mind. And but for us, the normal way, the best way is through self-observation and observing what we object to in others. And this is very important because we object to so many things. We object to so many things.
Also, dreams could be used to understand the unconscious mind.
Because there are two minds, shallow memory and deep memory. Now, shallow memory has a two-way valve. I can recall something from the shallow memory. Deep memory has a one-way valve. I cannot recall something from the deep memory. But when it comes out, I can observe it. You understand? So when we are talking about the beginning of the unconscious mind, we are talking about deep memory. Right? Now, what is deep memory? What is deep memory?
Coming from previous births.
That's a very, what do you call, that's a very ordinary way of putting it. You know? It's not the answer to the question, even if it is right. What is deep memory?
Like in 1 second, you memorize every moments. Just in 1 second, just one thing you memorize, and everything whole trip is memorized in just 1 second.
What is deep memory? You do a lot of dream practice. You should know what is deep memory. What is deep memory? Okay. Two kinds of memory. Which are the two kinds of memory? Which are the two kinds of memory? Say, I've already talked for 30 years, right? And now this is the end game, right? This is the end game, right? So, what are the two kinds of memory? Come on. Yeah. Huh? Yes, experiential memory and eventual memory. I meet you is an event. So that goes into which? Shallow memory. But I meet you, I feel angry. Where does that come from? Deep memory. Can you understand? Right? So deep memory has a one-way valve. Anger can come out. Anger cannot go back in, or I cannot take my consciousness in to see how much of anger is lying over there. Is this clear to everybody? You getting it? It's clear. Gordon. Now, how is deep memory created? How is deep memory created? You know what is an end game in cards? What an end game in cards is. There are 4 cards left. There are 4 cards left. So there are 4 people playing, right? And you need 3 tricks out of those 4 tricks. Out of those 4 tricks, you need 3 tricks to make your contract. To make your contract. Now, if you take the tricks from your own hand, right, you're only going to get 2. So what do you do? What do you do? You give 1 to the opponent. You let him take 1 trick and then he is forced to, what do you call, play something which will give you the next 3 tricks. Yeah? So in cards, that is called as the end game. It is called as an end game. So here we are playing an end game. I'm asking you to give 1 trick so I can give you the other 3 tricks, right? How is deep memory created? How is deep memory? Come on, Gordon. How is deep memory created?
I can say that in childhood there may be some shocking events, traumatic.
Deep memory is not events, it is.
So that's why there has been some reaction to it, some fears attached to it, which are buried deep down, and
Right.
we are not able to
Accept
recall
it.
it at all.
Accept it. But
it is working, and
Yeah.
it is a cause of a lot of events in the current life, the present life.
let's take out the word deep. Now, how is how is experiential memory created? Let's take out the word deep. Then we'll add it later on. Huh? Every moment, what experience you are passing through. Can you see you're sitting over here? Huh? You may be showing that you're interested, but you're passing through boredom. So what impression are you giving yourself? That of boredom. You're giving yourself the impression of boredom. She loves to look at her phone. She gives herself the impression of boredom. Right? So, each moment, what impression are we giving ourselves? Right? I give a donation to a hospital. But what a good person am I? So I'm not, I'm giving myself the impression of ego. Can you get it? What a good boy am I? Right? So each moment, what impression am I giving myself? And that is going into my experiential memory. That is called as sanskar. That is called as sanskar. And that is stored in the deep unconscious. Sanskar can come out. It cannot go back in. I cannot go in and see what my sanskars are. There is no two-way valve. But I can recollect eventual memory. I can recollect that I met you 20 years ago. But 20 years ago when I met you, was I daydreaming? Can you get it? Yeah. Was I having some thoughts of excitement? Can you get it? I don't remember. That is all lying in the, what impression I gave myself is lying in the deep memory. Now, why is it called deep memory? Why is it called deep memory? I can't hear.
It carries over.
No, why is it called deep memory? See, I'm looking at his car and I'm feeling jealous. I'm consumed by that jealousy. And I'm admiring his car. I'm congratulating him on buying a new car and etc. But what I'm impression, come on, these are all the basic, what you call teachings of Mr. Tavaria. Basic. I'm not the Mahabharat, the very basic teachings.
It's concealed.
Because in my, what do you call, that part of the unconscious, already so many patterns of jealousy are lying, and this, what do you call, it comes together with those patterns. Now, like he said, some of those patterns may be when we don't know, right? But when I feel jealous, all those, even though one pattern of jealousy comes out, it may have the intensity of all those patterns. And that is why that jealousy which has come out, it is not just of this life, because the intensity may be of so many lives. Can you now understand what I'm trying to say? Not got it as yet.
So like there are some containers for jealousy, envy and all.
Yeah,
So
they are
it goes
political.
on
They are political parties.
parties, yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
So,
so it goes on adding there.
what do you call, jealousy is the Congress, right? And self-love is BJP. We'll get more than 400. Self-love is BJP, right? So as soon as they get what do you call, one more candidate into the party, now the party is 300 strong, 400
Expanding.
expanding, right? And this whole unconscious mind is full of these, what do you call, political parties, full of these political parties, right? And they're all waiting to increase their membership. What does it mean that they are waiting to increase their membership? What does it mean that they are waiting to increase their membership?
They want to become more powerful. They want to continue ruling.
Yeah, but what does it mean in our daily living? What does it mean? Supposing just now self-love is in power. Self-love is in power. And the power changes there. It's not a 5-year this thing, right? Even 5 minutes is a very long time. It's 5 minutes is thousands of years over there, right? So, I mean, they have a lifespan of 3 seconds, right? So those patterns have a lifespan of 3 seconds, right? So just now for 3 seconds, self-love is in power, right? Right? Now, what is happening? What does that mean? That they have 400 members. What is their basic desire? From 400 to become 401. From 400 to become 400 and so what will they do? They will invite such events in life. This is called astrology. Can you understand? They will invite those kind of events in my life which will increase their membership of self-love. So, supposing they invite an event where I help you, right? And then I say, what a good boy am I. I have helped this person. Right? And that pattern of self-love goes from 400 to 401. Right? So, do these patterns which are lying there, this Virat, this unconscious mind, does it control our destiny? Can you understand? Our whole destiny, our life is controlled by these patterns. And unless we want to be free of our destiny, or we want to move in a new line of time, can you understand? Then I have to bring light upon those patterns. I have to bring light upon those patterns. Right? And this is no easy way out. Right? Either I do it through observing it, or I do it through yoga nidra, or there could be other deeper ways. But what I'm trying to say is this is very, very important. Most important. Now, let's take it in a different way. Now, all these patterns together, what does Mr. Tavaria call them? What does Mr. Tavaria call it? Structure of acceptance. He calls it the structure of acceptance. Gurdjieff calls it as level of being. Level of being attracts life. Level of being attracts. So this structure, all these patterns together, they have a magnetic pull towards the events of life. Right? And each event of life, they have been invited by them. So those events, they come to meet us, and in those events, if we just repeat what is in the pattern, the patterns become stronger. Right? And if we pause over there, bring in consciousness, then the patterns become weaker. Then their invitational factor for future events goes down. And because we have invested in consciousness, consciousness starts gathering, and that consciousness becomes a factor for inviting new events in life. Can you understand what I'm trying to say?
It contributes to the state we live in.
Where?
The state we live in. So these are the factors which contribute to it and the continuity of it.
All the events which come to meet us. All the events which come to meet us. They don't come at random. They don't come at random. They come through invitation. They come through invitation. Now try to understand this. Now you're working upon yourself, right? And you're moving in this line of time from birth to death. And in this line of time, over here is an accident. You've not yet reached. You're over here. In this line of time, at this point is an accident. You have not come to that point in time, but the collective magnetic pull of all those sanskars which are lying in the, what do you call, unconscious mind, and if I keep on living the same life, are going to drive me to that event which is an accident, right? So in my life, right, I say I'm 70 years old, but I can see at 75 there's an accident. Now, this accident is being invited by this unconscious mind. Now, in that moment, if I start working upon myself, right, and instead of investing in the, what do you call, the pattern, what he calls as memory pattern, the sanskar, I invest in consciousness, right? The patterns become weak. So their attraction for that accident, and this consciousness which I am bringing to each moment of my life will change my fate. It will give me a new line of time. So when I come to 75 years, the accident will be low and I will move across. Can you understand? This is how we change our destiny. We change our destiny. And we can only change our destiny through consciousness. There is no other way. There's no other way. So, he's saying that Arjun was in, when I learned that Arjun was in Virat, and he defeated all our warriors with one single chariot. And this is very important because he put all the warriors into Yoga Nidra. Yoga Nidra. I knew that we were going to lose the battle. We were going to lose the battle because he had risen above all the patterns which were lying in his unconscious mind. unconscious mind.
So he is able to see the line of fate.
Yes, his destiny. His destiny. And consciousness changes the destiny. So each moment that you invest in pausing, each moment that you invest in observing what is coming out, each moment that you see that negative emotion and stand apart from it, you allow the pattern to disintegrate. And not only that, you get the energy which is locked in the pattern, and you use that energy for holding your presence, for your self-remembering. You hold that energy, you use that energy, right? And that is in our normal living, in our normal life, we move along the path of spirituality in this way. But when we go to sleep at night, or when we go back to sleep in the morning, we can move directly into the unconscious mind through Yoga Nidra. Through Yoga Nidra. And in that we can, in one practice of Yoga Nidra, because if we can enter for a few seconds also, we can change the patterns of many lifetimes. Many lifetimes. But that requires a very high state of yoga practice to be able to do that.
So just a quick recap. So are you saying that in every event that occurs in our life, either the sanskar in our deep memory and our
first of all, when the event comes in our life, the first thing is to accept it is my responsibility. It is my patterns which have invited this event. Yes. Can you understand?
Yeah.
And if the event has come to meet me, it is signaling something about what is lying in my unconscious mind. It is giving me an opportunity to work on my Virat Pradesh.
So
right?
Every event that comes in life, it's either going to increase the sanskar and the intensity of the sanskar, jealousy, positive, negative,
if
whatever.
I become a victim of that pattern,
correct,
then one pattern repeats.
Yes.
And then one pattern has come out and two go back in.
Understood. So
Two
either
go
I
back in.
can,
Now it has become 401, Mr. Self-Love.
either sanskar is going to go up, or I can make a conscious effort to throw light on it, and the 400 will become 399.
399, and then the power of 399 to push you to that accident is
less.
Diminished.
So now a practical question. Living in day-to-day lives and livelihoods, obviously when these events occur, we see an event with a spouse or a kid or a employee or something else, right away we want to do something about that event. Either we want to advise the other person, we want to guide the other person, we want to opinionate on it, versus just saying, let me observe and add more light to it. So there's an immediate reaction that comes, which I also feel increases the intensity of the deep memory patterns around this.
Wherever there is reaction, right?
Yeah.
There is always increase in pattern.
Correct.
There's always increase in pattern. There's always increase in sanskar. There's always increase in identification. Sleep. So first thing is to pause the reaction. Second thing is to ask the question, who is in the event? You see, life is a play. Can you understand?
Yes.
And life being a play, you're playing some role in that event. Right? If your son is in front of you, you're playing the role of a father. You are not the father. The real I cannot be a father, it cannot be a mother or anything. Can you understand?
Yes.
Right? But it wears the clothes of father. So it plays it for a relative time, in relative time and space. In this moment, it has become a father. So first of all, you pause the reaction, look at the event, and say, who is in this event? So a father is in this event. Right? Now, how can I play the role of father without getting identified again in the event? Right? Now, you're in this role of the father, And supposing the son says, I failed in the exam. Right? Now, the idea is to remember that you are playing the role. And the fact that he has failed in the exam cannot come without my invitation factor. His also, but yours also. Can you understand? So, it is not that he is at fault. He is not at fault. The minute I find fault, I am identified, gone. The minute I complain, I am gone. If I said, if you had studied and not done this, I am gone, identified. My wicket has fallen. In the game of life, I am out. Now come back another time when your batting comes. Can you get it? So, just who is in this event? Or you may be as an employer in this event. Or you're as a son in this event. So, every event has a role. In every event, you're playing some role. So, when you pause, the first thing you ask your question, who is playing this event? Who is in this event? And you will come to something, father, son, whatever.
So what you're saying is obviously we pause, that feedback can be given later on by throwing reflection and everything else if I have to share something back. But naturally, we want to control the environment around us. So then we all start reacting. But I think what you're also saying is...
Control will come out of self-love. Again, you're identified with the pattern of self-love.
Agreed. So if I maybe slow down, that eventually everything else around me may also slow down.
Right. In the Yoga Sutra, we come to a point in the Yoga Sutra where Ishwar Pranidhana. We don't control, Ishwar controls. Can you understand? Right? Only he can control.
Sir, the time immediately on waking up, sleep, you have spoken is a very good time for your creativity. It could also be a time for reflecting on our dreams. So that
see, when you wake up in the morning, the first thing, don't throw away that moment. Right? So don't jump out of bed immediately. Go back and try to go back to the half asleep state. And try to remain in that state for as long as you can, or as long as you can afford. Right? I don't know, you may have to run to office or something. But everybody can afford a few minutes. And a few minutes of that state is a very long time. It's a very long time. Right? A few minutes in that state can have a bearing on the whole day. Can you see? It will change the reactions of the whole day. It will change your consciousness of the whole day. So instead of waking up from your bed, right, go back to sleep. But don't go back to full sleep, go back to half sleep. And in that state, thoughts have slowed down because it is called the alpha state, right? And thoughts have slowed down. And just be an observer and a sensor. Sense yourself and observe what is happening. Try to do these two things together. Deep sensitivity of self. And as you sense the self, a time will come where the sensitivity of the self itself is joyful. Right? The self does not need a chocolate to feel joyful. The self in its own nature is joyful. Can you understand? So go back in the morning, go back to sleep, wait in that, and in that half awake state, just sit there and watch. Right? And sense yourself. Who is this watching? If you can do that much, it will have a... And then coupled with your practice of 3-step rhythmic breathing, I mean, observation will, it'll become spontaneous throughout the day. It will be so easy to move through the day, as if nothing in the day is touching you. Nothing in the day is touching. Right? That is why in the Hindus, they worship the lotus flower. Because water comes on the lotus flower, but it goes away. So emotions come on the lotus flower, they flow down. The lotus flower rises above the mud. The mud is there, but the mud cannot touch the lotus flower. So If you can do this in the morning, even 5 minutes in the morning, it will transform the whole day. You'll become a lotus flower. A lotus flower. Yeah. Where are we? She wants to say something. Yeah.
One question related to this, that when you see the events came bringing out the same patterns within you, there is sometimes that pain, sadness, whatever, that this is still there in me. Is that a negative or is it positive? Or that observation of that pain, is it?
As long as it remains at a sensitivity level, it is very, very positive.
Okay.
The minute we start complaining about it, we miss the bus.
Right. It's like whole self burns with that.
This is what we call as divine discontent. Why am I still getting identified?
Okay.
Why am I still getting identified?
Okay. Okay.
And it is very painful, and it should be very painful.
Yeah.
It should be very painful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh Sanjay, I had no hope of victory when I heard that the king of Matsya had with great honor bestowed his daughter Uttara on Arjun, and he had her for his son.
Okay. So they were in the Virat Pradesh during Agnatavas, and Matsya Naresh, he first offered his daughter to Arjun, and Arjun accepted the daughter for his son, and the name of the daughter was Uttara. Matsya being jealousy, right? And Uttara being the highest, something to move higher. What is the connection? Come on. Now, how do we make the connection? How does the transformation of jealousy give us the child of Uttara? How does the transformation of jealousy give us the child of Uttara?
It develops the vivek. Jealousy can, both sides you can see.
What is in jealousy? What do we see in jealousy? What do we see in jealousy? No, I say you have something and I don't have something. What does it mean? That mechanically, what has developed within me mechanically? Huh? Give the mic.
A space has developed, vacuum that I don't have.
No. You have a beautiful car and I don't have a beautiful car, so I'm in a state of jealousy. And in this jealousy, I'm seeing two things: your car and my not having. So what has changed from my normal thinking? What has changed? What has changed from my normal thinking? My normal thinking is always digital. I only see one. Suddenly I am seeing two. I've developed a different kind of thinking. I am seeing two. Right? Now, jealousy does not have to be killed. Envy has to be killed. Jealousy has to be transformed. So, how do we transform jealousy? How do we transform jealousy? Come on, come on. How do we Now I was seeing 1, now I'm seeing 2. Now, if I consciously start seeing 2, all I have to do is, this has happened mechanically, right? And if I can bring in consciousness and I start seeing 2, will it transform my life completely? Will it transform just the very emotion of jealousy, the transformation of jealousy into Uttara, the child of jealousy, right? So, what is the transformation of jealousy? No, then I'm what you call, I'm doing window dressing, right? So I'm giving it a cover of gold, but it is not gold, right? I want to transform iron into gold. I want to transform iron into gold. It's not called transform, it's called transmutate. Iron can be transformed into a thali, right? But it can't be transformed into gold. So we say we transmutate iron into gold, right? And transmutation is not a property of the earth, it is a property of the sun, where the atoms of the sun, they bombard each other, and an atom of iron can become an atom of gold. But on the earth, we call that power as nuclear energy. We call that power as nuclear energy. Now, my normal thinking is digital. Let's take a day-to-day example. Say I'm in the stock market, right? And the stock market is going up and up, which is going every day these days, yeah, right? It is going into uncharted territory, one day after the other. It's just moving up and up and up, right? And I say this is never going to fall. So what am I blind to? What am I blind to? I'm blind to the other extreme. Can you see? The other extreme is already there. It is, even though the market is going up and I'm seeing it going up, the other extreme is already pulling it down. Can you get what I'm trying to say? The other extreme is already there, only it is invisible. In my normal, what you call, perception, I cannot see it. In my normal perception, I cannot see it. Oh, just now you say you got married. I don't know whether, but supposing you got married and you're so happy, right? And you're saying this happiness can never end as long as there are stars in the sky, right? My happiness will continue, right? You're blind to the other side. And is the other side already pulling? It is already pulling, but we can't sense it. To sense it, we need something called intuition. To sense the pull of the other side, we need something called intuition. And we have not risen to that state of intuition. So we are, in our normal thinking, we hold on to one side, we are blind to the other side. Now suddenly I'm feeling jealous. Right? I'm feeling jealous. So in jealousy, mechanically, I've been gifted to see that he has a car, I don't have a car. Now instead of seeing 1, I'm seeing 2. Has it changed my thinking? Even mechanically, has it changed my thinking? Now if I can bring in consciousness, then that jealousy transforms to something called vivek, the power of discrimination. Gurdjieff calls it as conscience. Conscience, the power to discriminate. Now I see the market is going up into uncharted territory every day, but I also know that there is another end, and suddenly I'm looking at both together, the invisible side and the visible. See, just the previous one we went into unconscious, the invisible side and the visible side. See, you get married. Of course, Gurdjieff says that you don't get married to a person, you get married to a machine. Right? So two machines come together, and then you expect the other person to behave in a certain way. And how can you, expect a machine to behave in a certain way? A machine, behaves as a machine. But we'll put Gurdjieff on the side and we'll say that we got married to a person. Okay, we got married to a person. Now, does that person whom you have got married to, does he have a conscious side and an unconscious side? Which side have you got married to? Conscious side. But if you can see two together, if the Vivek has opened, if the conscience is opened, right? You have transformed jealousy and the conscience is opened. Suddenly you will see, I'm getting married to this person, right? But this person also has a dark side, and the dark side is much, much bigger than the side which I can see. And many times the side which is in light is going to go into the dark side, and the dark side is going to come out, and I'm already seeing, I'm already visualizing what is in the dark side. Will I feel unhappy? No, because I'm looking at two together. I'm looking at two together. Our problem is we can only see one. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So the art of dual thinking, the art of looking at two things simultaneously, right? That is the beginning of Vivek, the power of discrimination, the power of accepting life in its totality. I accepted this person, but I accept his dark side and I accept the light side. I know that tomorrow the dark side will take the place of the side which is in light, right? And they will keep on exchanging between each other. And this is the law of life. Life is so many pendulums brought together, and the pendulums keep on swinging between two extremes, right? And suddenly I'm separate from the swing. I've separated from the swing. I'm looking at the swing. So Matsya, jealousy, he's the king of Virat, the unconscious. And when that jealousy is transformed, right? If you can work upon jealousy every time, don't suppress jealousy. When jealousy starts moving, right? Even in the small things in life, look at that jealousy, observe that jealousy, stand apart from that jealousy, allow that pattern of jealousy to disintegrate, and use the energy to awaken dual thinking, right? And a person who can dual think, can think of two sides of the coin together, the two sides of the pendulum together, he will never suffer in life. It does not mean suffering will not come in his life. Suffering will come. He will not be willing to suffer. He'll be standing above it. He knows this is a part of the swing of life, right? Everything in life swings between opposites, and every person has all the opposites within him. That is the package deal I took when I got married, right? And that's a part of that package deal, right? Okay. Are you married? Well, good for you. Take the next one. Or is there any question? Yeah,
Yes, sir.
Gordon.
So
Yeah.
is it true that someone rises up in life, he'll be subjected to more suffering? More suffering will come his way. Could be considered as opportunities to rise even further?
See, we must be able to distinguish between useful suffering and useless suffering. That suffering which leads me, which can bring about heat in my system, which we call as tap. That suffering which can burn sanskars. That suffering which can lift me to a higher state of consciousness. That is useful suffering. Right? And like we talked of dual thinking, to be able to see both. So when this inner vivek starts developing, when the inner conscience starts developing, then we can discriminate between useful suffering and useless suffering. So that suffering which dissolves the ego is very, very useful suffering. It may be very painful, right? But it is very useful suffering, right? So suffering will come, and as we rise in consciousness, higher forces will send suffering. Higher forces will send suffering, right? For us to rise more, to use the suffering as a stepping stone to rise more. But the minute we suffer, then we are stuck over there. We are identified. Can you get? So, in the beginning, Patanjali tells us abhyas and vairagya, right? So, use the suffering as a stepping stone, and then vairagya, drop it, right? Move ahead, move ahead. And then a new form of suffering will come, a new form. Then again we can divide suffering into two parts, personal suffering and universal suffering. In the end, even though personal suffering dissolves the ego, we come to a state where we realize all personal suffering is useless suffering. Because it's all connected with the I, all connected with the ego. Right? So all personal suffering we have to rise above. Right? As long as the personal is there, the ego will never dissolve. Can you see? From the personal, there is a movement to the universal. There's the dissolving of the personal and the expansion of consciousness into the universal. But as long as we hold on to personal suffering, right? As long as we are identified with personal suffering, right? We cannot dissolve the ego, because it is the ego which suffers. It doesn't suffer. The ego feels the pain, the soul suffers. Right? Why does the soul suffer? Now we've gone a little sidetrack, but we'll finish this. Right? Why does the soul suffer and not the ego? The ego feels hurt. He insulted me. Who feels hurt? The ego. Right? But then I keep on repeating it, brooding about it inside. He insulted me and he said this to me and he said that to me. Who is suffering now? It is not the ego suffering. The ego is making me repeat it inside. Who is paying the bill? Who is paying the bill? You know, there was that old movie, Ram or Shyam. You saw that? The old movie. And Dilip Kumar comes in the restaurant and he orders all the dishes one by one and he eats them all. And then he's filled and then he gets up and he goes away. And then the other Dilip Kumar comes and he has to pay the bill. He has to pay the bill. So this is, in life it's very funny. The ego feels hurt, the soul suffers. Somebody else pays the bill. Yeah, somebody else pays the bill. The ego will never suffer. The ego will find a way to run away from suffering. Can you get it? And the soul wants to digest that suffering, so it uses that suffering to grow in essence. To grow in essence. So suffering is very important, and there is what you call useful suffering and useless suffering. And then we come to a state of personal suffering, where we come to a state, initially personal suffering is useful suffering, and then we come to a state where we realize all personal suffering is useless suffering. It is not suffering only, it is only ego. It is only ego. Right? And to come to that state in life and to be able to see life in that way, where now there is no personal suffering, then what happens? Then what happens? Tell me. When you're free of personal suffering, what happens?
Then it's a universal suffering takes over.
Yes, but how does that universal suffering come in?
Because we see suffering around us and we feel.
You feel the suffering of others.
Others.
You feel the suffering of others. Can you get it? Suddenly you have no suffering of your own, right? Because that thing which was the cause of the cog in the wheel, which was the cause of personal suffering, has dissolved, and suddenly you are living the suffering of others. And Gurdjieff calls this as conscious suffering. Now there is no personal suffering. The world is a suffering factory, and you are experiencing the suffering of others. Right? For you, it should be easy to understand. As a Christian, it should be easy to understand.
Some related question. As a soul rises up and the universal suffering takes over, then we talk about Mahakala and ring pass not and all that. That samadhi with seed and without seed. But I really wonder that souls, they would like to leave this world which is still having suffering and go and think of themselves and enjoy themselves by passing the ring pass not, as it is we have learnt. So I mean, I'm feel it's very odd about that, because a person would like to, or soul would like to come back for the sake of the others who are still suffering, to bring them out.
I think we've gone too far off the track, and there's still one aspect of suffering which I want to talk about. It's remained, we've not talked about it. What is a higher aspect of suffering? A higher aspect of suffering. A higher aspect of suffering. Why is suffering so important? So important. Not personal suffering. Not personal suffering. A higher aspect. Why is it important to feel other people's suffering? Why is it important to feel other people's suffering?
See, as such, on an energy level, everybody is one.
Why?
So we'll always think about others and the suffering, maybe even Srishti, environment and all that.
Okay, we'll forget higher suffering. Let's talk about ordinary suffering. What is one aspect of ordinary suffering which is actually a higher aspect, which we have not talked about? Tapa is, when we consciously use suffering, we transform it into tapa. Struggle between yes and no. Right? One aspect of suffering. Supposing I'm practicing 3-step rhythmic breathing. I'm maybe practicing self-observation. Maybe I'm practicing holding of presence, of self-remembering. What role can suffering play? What role can suffering play? And we are not talking about higher forms of suffering, just from at our level, our ordinary level of suffering. What role can suffering play?
I am free from internal suffering.
Pardon?
I am free from internal suffering.
No. In our ordinary practices, to move to a higher state of consciousness, and how can we use even our ordinary suffering? Forget everything else, right?
Keeps us connected to others. People.
Whatever you do when you suffer becomes permanent. Can you understand? Now, say I'm not feeling good in my body, I have a fever, right? And I'm suffering it, right? The pain, the lack of energy. Now, in this moment of my suffering, if I practice 3-step rhythmic breathing, if I hold my attention, if I hold my presence, right? I practice observation of all my reactions in the, what do you call, fever. Then those practices go very deep. They become permanent. They sort of become set inside. As if the, what do you call, the cooking is set, crystallized. Can you understand? So, suffering crystallizes consciousness. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So, but now I'm in this fever and my body is feeling weak and I start complaining. I met that person, he had a cold and he passed it on to me, and what do you call, and I'm finding fault everywhere. That means I'm identified with my fever, properly identified with my fever, right? Then what is becoming permanent within me? Is the pattern of complaining becoming permanent? Can you understand what I'm trying to say? So, when we are suffering, even ordinary personal suffering, if we can use that suffering to, what you call, hold higher states of consciousness, to practice bringing rhythm in our breathing, to practice the holding the observing eye, to practice holding presence and self-remembering, then those practices which we are doing, they suddenly go very deep into our conscious and subconscious mind and unconscious mind. Can you understand? They become sort of permanent, right? Then in my next life, because they become permanent, I am born with them. I have used suffering to make them, to crystallize them. Guruji uses the word crystallize, but permanent. I have used the suffering, right? So in any form of suffering, if I make an effort in that suffering, if I, what do you call, try to stand apart from that suffering and make an effort to hold a higher state of consciousness, then that suffering will make that effort, that state of consciousness, longer, more permanent. And that is why suffering is very useful. Very useful. Very, very useful.
It's like to build up our muscles, make us stronger.
Yeah.
Can be used.
The new pattern of consciousness becomes spontaneous. Till then we had a mechanical pattern of reaction. And this new pattern of holding consciousness, we cannot say it becomes automatic. That would be mechanical. It becomes spontaneous. It becomes sahaj, what we call. So, in a way, when we start our journey, any form of suffering is useful. Any form of suffering is useful. And then we move to a higher state of suffering where we realize that we cannot go ahead as long as we personally suffer. As long as we personally suffer, we are stuck in the whirlpool. We go round and round where we are. And then when we are free of our personal suffering, then what do you call, we start experiencing the suffering of others. And that experiencing the suffering of others then leads us to this thing that, is there a way to be free of suffering? Is there a, what do you call, is there some state where man can be free of suffering? It is a universe, that it is not a personal question. It is a universal question. Universal question. And it is not even a question. It is like an inner adventure, a quest. Okay. Can I find that state where no one can suffer? No one can suffer.
So it feels like a little bit of a tricky maze, because until personal suffering, I understand it's under your control. That, okay, I see my suffering, I understand it, I'm free of it, I'm throwing light, all perfect. Now we get to universal suffering, seeing the suffering of others.
Experiencing the suffering of others.
So
we're already seeing the suffering of others.
Yeah, okay, so experiencing the suffering of others.
Experiencing the suffering. And this is something which it comes on the way. The higher sends it to us. It is not something which we invite. It is sent to us to rise above it.
So day-to-day example.
Huh?
Give some day-to-day example. Let's say I see suffering of Bhavya over here, not doing well on his exam, not getting a job. So now I'm feeling some suffering for him, or I'm feeling sorry for. So I feel it gets into a vicious loop over there, because then it gets into high opinionation. Then I'm starting to give him advice, and it goes back and forth between me and Bhavya. So I think we get into a loop over there. I don't know how to. If you can help a little bit over there.
Yeah, but you're asking the question from within the loop. My suffering and Bhavya's suffering.
Correct. Okay. So explain.
But it has nothing to do with your suffering or Bhavya's suffering.
Okay.
Right? It is has to do that because you are identified and Bhavya is identified, you are still suffering.
Understood. Okay. Okay. So
that why is man still in identification? And that is the suffering. I'm not bothered about whether you had a fight with your wife and you're suffering. It's not that. Can you get what I'm trying to say?
Yes.
I'm not interested in that suffering. That is all personal suffering. At a certain level, it's all useless suffering. It is all the suffering of the dream of life. But what is holding you in that dream, and that is identification. Right? Why are you still identified? For that I am suffering. Whether it is your suffering, his suffering, or anyone's suffering. Because why is a person still living in the dream? Why is he still accepting the dream as the dream reality?
That's what you call universal suffering?
That is the universal suffering.
But that's never going to end.
Huh?
That's never going to end.
Yes, but you use that suffering to go into higher states of consciousness. You use that suffering to fix your own consciousness. That understanding comes that it cannot end.
That it cannot end.
It cannot end, but still there is an ending to suffering.
Sir, with giving an example for the universal suffering, I would like to talk about Mother Teresa. How she worked for the destitute and those on the street. She put it into action to support, help them, take care of them. And of course, many other people who starting their NGOs to help others or the environment and all that, because they feel it so strongly, they want to do something about it.
You cannot compare the NGOs with Mother Teresa. All the NGOs are working in identification and self-love. None of them are bothered about suffering. They are only interested in how they want to solve suffering. There's nothing. When I was in college, the first person to make Mother Teresa famous was Khushwant Singh. Nobody knew about Mother Teresa. And Khushwant Singh, in that time, he used to bring out a weekly called the Illustrated Weekly of India. And in the Illustrated Weekly of India, that edition was on Mother Teresa. Can you understand? And there were 3 sentences of Mother Teresa on the first page of Illustrated Weekly. There were quotes of Mother Teresa, which I remember to this day. When I see a child is unhappy, I see Jesus is unhappy. When I see a child suffering, I see Jesus is suffering. And when I see a child is sick, I see Jesus is sick. Can you see? She only sees Jesus. Right? She only sees Jesus. The other NGOs see their own egos. Can you get? This is a different state of universal suffering. Jesus is suffering, right? Somebody with whom I am one, with whom I identified myself. My samadhi is with Jesus. That samadhi of bhakti is with Jesus. And that Jesus is, the child is suffering, Jesus is suffering, I am suffering. Can you get it? It's a very, very different state. It's a very different state. right? It's not the personal suffering of the child, right? There is a universal cause of suffering, right? And by helping the child, am I making a what do you call effort towards that universal cause of suffering, right? So it's a different state to be, different state. When you see him suffering, you don't see Jesus is suffering. Poor guy is suffering, he's not getting married. Right? Yeah. And
so that's a case with a lot of people. If what are the impediments for the some youth who are unable to get married for early marriage, say they marry late, or maybe make it a general topic, because there are a lot of youth like that who have the same problem of not getting married.
They should go for those lectures on the secret, how to manifest. Bolo.
So this universal suffering, so it goes from the higher state would be like from daya, karuna, and the consciousness, the conscious suffering goes to mudita.
We won't go into the words just now.
Okay.
Don't this thing, but it goes through different stages, right? And the highest state of that suffering would be where you feel the suffering of the whole of humanity as one. Can you? And that is why you want to find what is the seed of suffering and how to be free of that seed of suffering. So you are suffering, she is suffering, he is suffering, they are suffering. But when all the suffering moves into just one universal suffering, everybody's suffering, and you feel that universal suffering as one, it's unimaginable to understand the intensity of this suffering. Right? And then you use that suffering for your final departure into that state of consciousness. You use that suffering. And that is what Jesus did on the cross. He used that suffering to fix his state of consciousness. Fix it. Of course, it was very painful. So for a moment, he came back down into complaining. Have you forsaken me? And then he realized that he complained. And there is no complaining over here. He went back. And there was and that is the beauty. That is the beauty of Jesus, that if it was Krishna or somebody, they wouldn't have complained. But there's the beauty that he was an ordinary man and also he had reached this state. And that is why that, what do you call, that beauty of that person, that he complained. He came back, complained. Have you forsaken me? What have I done? Complained, went back. And then he departed in that suffering. Whether he departed or not is another question, but what do you call that? He used that final suffering to fix that very high state of consciousness which he had achieved. So it became permanent after that. So anything we do when we suffer, it becomes permanent, it becomes more powerful, it gets crystallized, right? And so use your ordinary suffering, everyday suffering, right? The minute you're suffering about anything, immediately start your 3-step rhythmic breathing, immediately do a practice, right? So something which will help you to a higher state of consciousness, because if you're doing that in the process of suffering, it suddenly becomes much, much more powerful than you do it when you're not suffering. Maybe 100 or 1,000 times more powerful. The potency increases over there.
Also, you had talked about the cricket selection team for the World Cup, that one example. And then you had said that some folks or some cricketers who did not get selected. And when you just get down to that moment where these people who were there, who did not get selected.
See, everything is a part of self-observation.
Right.
Other observation is a part of self-observation.
Hmm.
So there was that process at that time, and I was watching the others on TV, those who were not. Right. So I was trying to read what was going on in their minds
Mhm.
beyond their facial expressions, and
Right.
I was trying to live that as a part of my own self-observation. I was not judging them.
Yeah.
But I was trying to understand what they were passing through because they were not selected.
Uncle,
Yeah.
my question was like when you said na, when ego is hurt, the jiva suffers. So,
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
so when ego is hurt, and when the brooding start at that time only jiva suffers, or when ego is hurt and immediately react, or
All suffering is of the soul. All hurt is of the ego.
huh. But when ego is hurt and immediately reacts with the anger,
See, try to understand this. Try to understand this. Before you were born, the soul decided to take a human body. Can you understand? The soul had a subtle form. The human body is a gross form. Now, the soul wanted to rise in consciousness, that it wanted to build something called essence. To build that something called essence, it needed events of life. So, before you were born, all the events which are going to come in your life were pre-decided by the soul. It had already sent the invitation letters. Can you understand? So all the events which come in your life one by one, who has invited them? The soul. Right? Why is it invited them? To build essence, and that essence can connect to spirit and it is free. The soul realizes that it is nothing but spirit and it is free. Right? So it, from the events of life, it extracts something called essence. Now, at 5 years, we build an ego. The ego does not like to feel pain. If somebody laughs at the ego does not like it. If somebody is whispering in the corner about the ego will feel it is whispering about them. Right? If anybody puts down the ego does not like it. Now, all those events, they came for the soul. But whom do they come to meet? The ego. The soul wanted them for freedom. The ego is not interested in freedom. The ego is interested in pleasure, peace, happiness. Can you grow out of pleasure, peace and happiness? You cannot grow out of pleasure, peace and happiness. So all the events which the soul invited, and they were decided before you were born, yeah? They come one by one in your life and they give you what you call suffering. The soul wanted to use that suffering to build its essence. But that comes to the ego. The ego says, what is this suffering? Get rid of it. Run away from the suffering. Find comfort somewhere else. Right? The ego is not interested in freedom. The ego is interested in running away from suffering. The ego is interested in more comfort. And the soul is interested in freedom. You have to ask yourself the question, why have you come here? Have you come here to find peace? Have you come here to find happiness? Then you've come to the wrong place. Have you come here to find freedom? Then you've come to the right place. જીવને શાંતિ નથી જોતી, એને મુક્તિ જોઈએ છે. અહમને શાંતિ જોઈએ છે. શાંતિ જોઈએ તો રામદુલારે બાપુ કે કબ્રસ્તાનમાં જાઓ, ઘણી શાંતિ મળી જશે. રાઈટ? જીવને મુક્તિ જોઈએ છે. And for mukti, for freedom, there must be transformation. There must be transmutation of our reactions to the events of life. Our reactions. And to be able to transform our events, our reactions to the events of life, because they were already invited. Nothing is going to change. To be able to transform our reactions, we need that consciousness, we need that understanding. We need what Gurdjieff calls the work. So in place of our decision-making capacity, Gurdjieff says you put the work. And in each situation of life, the work tells you how to build essence rather than to build memory pattern. I don't know if I answered your question, right? So all the events of life were pre-decided. We have nothing to complain about. The minute we complain, we are gone. It is they have come through our invitation only. Right? And they have only come for one purpose, to awaken. The soul only comes for one purpose, to awaken. But it forgets that purpose because the ego takes over. And then all the events come to the ego. And then at the time of death, suddenly we realize nothing went to the soul. The soul could not extract any essence from the events of life. What Mr. Tavaria calls the energy of essence of consciousness. Could not extract anything. Let's take another round. Come back for another round. Come back for another. Come back to play the game again. So, there's nothing to complain about in life. Because everything you have invited.
Going back to the example that Bhavya asked on the cricket players, and obviously you're observing the expressions of these cricket players. Side example, like it happens in a family event when we say, I won the lottery, and I can see reactions of family members that say, at the face of it, they're congratulating you, but inside you can see somebody's jealousy. Somebody truly is feeling really happy for you. So you see different reactions in the observations of other people surrounding you on a regularized basis. How are you using that study of other people's reactions and body languages to improve your own growth versus getting into the right and wrongs of it? So I'm trying to just understand a little, because we do that daily, right? In daily events, we observe everybody else around us. And we formulate an opinion of right and wrong associated, which is what we're not supposed to do. But how are we using that observation, a study of others for our own growth?
See, as you grow, you become aware of certain laws which are operating. So supposing we take one law, that if you plant a seed, something grows out of that plant, that seed. One law. And that seed has to be planted in a certain good soil. I wouldn't use the word good, but what do you call conducive soil. Conducive soil. So when you're observing other people, apart from the visual, what is there, what is on the outside, when you're trying to probe into other people and see what they are really, each moment, what sanskar they are giving themselves, what are they living each moment. I'm congratulating you, but I'm living jealousy inside. Can you understand? So it gives me an idea of the state of identification. It gives me an idea that he's sowing the seed of jealousy. And it gives me a kind of vision of this seed of jealousy is going to invite what kind of events in his life? Right? See, the spectrum of events have already been decided at birth. But out of the spectrum, which events are going to come to increase the political party of jealousy? And this is a very, what do you call, childish way of putting it, jealousy and all. Because in the end, there is just one opposite in life. There are no other opposites. Can you understand what I'm trying to say? There is only one opposite in life. Darkness and light. Jealousy is darkness. Can you understand? Self-love is darkness. So I've sown the seed of self-love. Now I'm trying to see where that seed is going to take this person. But I have to see it on a general scale also, that these are like individual seeds, but there is also the general seed, that is, everything is dark. He's still sowing the seed of darkness. So more darkness is going to come to meet him in his life. Now what forms will that darkness take? What forms will that darkness take? Can you?
But the worry is
it is a study. It is
understood,
it's
a study, but in that study, also the feeling that I will not be this or I'm better than him starts evolving.
The minute I start judging,
yes,
the judgmental eyes come in, then I'm not observing myself.
It's a fine line.
Yeah, the minute judgmental eyes come in, and try to understand this, that a thought of judgment may come, but do I give petrol to that thought?
Yes.
Can you understand?
Yes.
See, there's a fine line in the mind.
Correct.
Having a thought and thinking a thought. What is the difference between having, and this is where our consciousness should be.
Yes.
I have a thought that you owe me money.
Yes.
But I pause there and that's the end of the matter. But now I think a thought that you have me money, he's not giving it back to me. Now judgmental eyes will come in, he's this kind of person, he's that kind of person. Can you understand?
Yes.
Right? Having the thought is not so, what do you call?
Wrong.
As long as I am untouched by the thought.
The Lakshman Rekha, don't cross it.
Yeah. So you come to a state. You see, in the Yoga Sutra, we'll come to this thing where he will talk about Ishwar. What is Ishwar? The one who is untouched by klesha, karma, etc., vipakashaya, right? The one who is, he's not saying he's free. The thought comes, but he's untouched by it. So we come to an inner state where a thought comes, you owe me money, right? But that's the end of the matter. But I'm untouched by that thought. I'm unsullied by that thought. The minute I start thinking that thought, right, then I've got identified. Then I'm identified. But as long as I allow the thought and I allow it to pass by my gate without interfering with it, I don't invite it in my home to have a cup of tea, right? Then it's okay. You're untouched by that thought. So you come to a state, inner state, where judgmental thoughts will come, thoughts of jealousy will come, thoughts of comparison will come, right? Thoughts of self-love will come, because self-love continues much later, even after enlightenment. Because then there is self-love of your enlightenment. How can somebody be more enlightened than me? So self-love takes over even over there, right? So what do you call? These thoughts may come, but you are not touched by these thoughts. The word which Patanjali uses, aparamushta, right? Not untouched, but para means in the extreme, not touched. In those thoughts in their extreme cannot touch you. They still come. and they pass by your house like passerbys. You can't stop people who are going by your house. They're going on the road, you let them pass by. But you don't invite them into your home. The minute you start thinking the thought, you've invited it into your home, now you'll have to give it tea, and that thought may not go away from your home. It may make its residence over there, vasana, and make its residence. Vasigyotia. Can you get it?
Rajan Bhai,
Huh.
we just talked about the soul came with the purpose of freedom. So he has decided certain events coming
He
in.
decides a general outline of the events he wants for
Eh,
his essence.
Right. So now, suppose one event came and ego took away that event and the soul could not do anything with it. And then the similar event comes back in the life because soul has invited that.
It
or-
has to come back.
Right.
It
So,
may come in some other form.
right. So till you get free of that,
It will keep on repeating.
keep it on.
It will keep on repeating because you're sowing the seed and enjoying the repetition,
So-
if you can call it enjoying.
So is that the destiny or is that the kind of
Yeah, it is an open destiny. It is identification is an open destiny. Right? Shall we stop over here? Right? We'll meet at 4:30 in the afternoon. Right? Okay. Thank you.